Hi guys, welcome back to our Battle Royale survival tutorial series. In this episode we will be going over an advanced landscape material similar to the one we done in the last episode, but this time round we will be adding in our own textures. This will be the last tutorial covering landscape materials, so if you have any questions please feel free to join our Discord. So without further ado, let's go to where we left off the last episode. So let's head into our maps and open up our lobby map. Okay. Now this looks okay, but it's not great. So let's head over to our materials folder and open up our master landscape material. And mine's opened up on the other screen. So this is fine, but for what we want to do in this tutorial, the material functions are just going to get in the way. Material functions are a really good way to keep your materials nice and clean, but we want everything to be as open as possible for this tutorial so that we can work on it and set our own parameters. So let's just delete these, and we'll also delete our layer blends, and we'll start from scratch. Okay, and if we head on over here, let's just save this so that we can compile the shaders. Okay, so now we have a blank material instance, and we can delete both of these. Okay, so we no longer need these weight blends, so we can delete both of those as well, and just force delete. Now heading back over to our master landscape material, the first thing we want to do is start bringing in our textures. So if you head over to our materials folder, right click and new folder, and we'll just call this textures, or textures. Okay, and open that up. Now I have created some textures just for this tutorial. We have dirt, grass and mud. So let's open up the dirt and drag those in. Okay. Now these are just 2K textures, 2K resolution. You can go higher if you want, but it is going to cost you an optimization later. So just OK that. And let's now bring in our grass textures. All these textures I created inside the Quixel Megascan Studio. Really great piece of software. You can also pick your own textures and take them into Substance bitmap to material, and they will give you all these maps as well. So really what we want is our albedo, ambient occlusion, cavity, normal and roughness, and displacement maps. You can choose which displacement map you want to use. If you are using displacement maps, just remember they are pretty costly. Okay, so now that all our textures are in, we need to start setting up our how the textures view inside the viewport. So the normal maps, we need to open them up, scroll down to, let's see, is it here? Yeah, so you drop down this menu under texture, and we want to flip the green channels. You may not need to do this, it depends on where you got your materials from, but I know for me I do need to flip the green channels. So again, flip the green channel. Okay, and again down here, flip the green channel. Okay, so now that they are done, we need to set up our grayscale maps. So we'll start with the dot maps, and if we open these up, I'll just open them all up in fact. So let's just grab all of the grayscale maps, so the roughness, the ambient occlusion, the displacement, and the cavity, and I'll just right click and edit them, and that'll bring them all up. Okay, now you'll notice when we have these up, our compression settings are set to default. Now what that means is it gives it a gamma, so it gives its own gamma curve to it, which can affect how they appear in the viewport. So if we change these to masked, it'll give it the grayscale that we're looking for. So that's that one finished. You may be able to see it a little bit better in here. So masked, you can see the change right away. Okay, and you'll definitely be able to see the difference here. So we change from default to masked, you can see it now. Okay, so I'm going to continue and do the rest of these, and I'll pause the video and I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, so now that we have all that done, our textures are set up and we can now start setting up our material. So we will start off with our dirt, and if we hold T and click, we can drag in a texture 2D sample. Okay, now for this texture 2D sample, we now click down here and type in dirt. We have our dirt albedo. This could be called dirt diffuse, dirt base color, dirt albedo. It has many names, but they all kind of do the same thing. They give color to your texture. So you'll see right away we have the texture color. Now obviously this is blank because we don't have it linked up yet, as you can see here. But we want to do some things to this first. So the first thing we are going to do is, if we right click and convert to parameter, okay, and the parameter we can now set the name to dirt albedo, and we want to give it a group. We'll call this dirt. Okay, so before we go any further, if we change the sampler source to wrapped, shared wrap, okay, and now we want to duplicate this, drag it underneath, and we'll call this one our dirt cavity. So dirt cavity. And if we click here, we can now open up our dirt cavity map. Here it is here. Okay, now to get these working together, what we need to do is we want a multiply, okay, and if we drag from the top into A, and then we want another multiply, we drag from the top here again, and from this multiply we want to then drag it into here. Okay, so to control the cavity, if we click 1 and click, it gives us a constant, and just drag it into here, and we could give this a value of 0.5 for default. Right click, convert to parameter, and we want to change the parameter name to dirt cavity intensity. Okay, and we'll just clean this up a little bit and drag this out, and this is our albedo now set up. So if we just drag this out here and put a comment around about it, dirt albedo. Okay, so now we want to do a roughness map. So again, we just grab from here and duplicate, and we'll change this to dirt roughness. capital there. And you can see it's still in the dot group. And for the dot roughness, we want to hold L and click, and that will bring up a lerp, which is a linear interpolate. And what this does is, if we drag this into the alpha, we can get the linear interpolate to say we want this or this based on the values. Now, let me see, can we preview in real time? Yeah, it's not very apparent, but you have white values and black values. And those white values and black values control how wet this looks. So if we press 1 and click and drag out, and for this we want to right click and convert it to a parameter, and we want to call this our dot roughness min for the minimum value. Okay, and change this to the dot group again. Okay, and obviously we didn't do the same for this, so make sure our cavity intensity is in the dot group as well. And I'll just drag this out a little bit. Now we want to duplicate this, and we want the roughness max. So this will take our whitest area, and you can either tone it down or bring it back up, so make it more rough or less rough. And this can take our minimum area, so the black areas, and make it less rough or more rough. So it gives us a bit of control at both ends of the color gradient. So for the roughness, we want the default value to be 1. Okay, and that is our roughness setup. So comment this out, dot roughness. Now we want to set up our normal maps. So again, grab from here and duplicate, and we'll set this up as dot normal, and make sure it's in the dot group. Okay, and now we want to drag in a multiply. Oh, sorry, that's a lerp. So multiply, you can just hit, if you hold M and click, you can bring up the multiply, and from the multiply, drag in the top one. Okay, so now from B, what we want is to append. So if we right click and append the vector, and just drag that into B, we want to duplicate the append. Okay, and drag that into A, and then click 1 so we can bring up another constant, and drag that into B. And if we set this default value to 1, I'll go over what this does. So in a normal map, you have your 3 channels, your red, green and blue. Now the base normal map is 1 for blue, so if we bring up a vector 3, if you've used normal maps before, the vector 3 scale for a base normal map that is smooth is 0.5, 0.5 and 1. So that is the red, green and blue. So what we've done here is essentially we are taking the red, green and blue. This isolates the blue and gives it the standard value of 1. Now to increase your normal map, you want to increase the red and the green channels, which are set as default at 0.5. So if we increase the red and the blue channels, we can increase the intensity of the normal map. The red and green blue channels are here. So we have red, green and blue. Okay, so if we increase the red and the green, we increase the intensity. So let's drag this out, and we want to drag in another constant, right click and convert to parameter. Now this parameter we want to call dot normal intensity. Okay, and we want that to be in our dot group. And we just want to drag this into both of these values because we want to increase both the red and the green channel at the same time. Okay, so that is our normal map setup. So comment this out and say dirt normal. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is set up our ambient occlusion. So again, click here, duplicate down, and this is just our dirt AO, and inside it's inside our dirt group. So this is very similar, so all you have to do is drag in a multiply, and we want to multiply the dirt AO by a specific value, and this value will be a constant. Drag it into B, right click, convert to a parameter, and this parameter will be called our dirt AO intensity. And we want to place that in our dirt group. Sorry. Dirt group. Okay. And we'll just give this a minimum value of, say, 1. So this will drag in the exact value of this. So 1 times this value is this value. Okay. So let's comment this out, and this is our dirt AO. Okay. So now from here we want to set up our layer blend. So this will be our first layer. Before we go any further, let's just make sure we have the right maps in. So our dirt roughness map, let's grab here and say the dirt 001 roughness. Okay. And then here our dirt 001 normal, and our dirt 001 ambient occlusion. Okay. So let's now set up our layer blend. So if we right click and say landscape layer blend, and just like the last video, inside our layer blend we're going to add some elements in here. So the first one is going to be our dirt. Very simple. Make sure it is set to LB weight blend and set this to 1. Okay. So we can then drag this into here. Now rather than duplicate these down right now, we're going to hold off until we have, in fact what we could do is just set these up, because I am going to use 3 layer blend layers. You can use more, but just remember the more you use, the less likely you are to compile the landscape. It isn't a perfect system, and really you just want this landscape material to be your base layer. So let's add 2 more, and I'm going to call this mud and blend at 1. And again, this one will be called grass and blend at 1. So now we have our layer blend set up. Let's drag this first one into base color and duplicate it, because we need another one for our roughness. Okay. Now let's just remove this. This is telling me that yeah, so we need just 1 channel into the alpha. So for the roughness, I'm just going to grab the red channel and pull it into the alpha. Okay. Yeah. So now that we've done that, let's just pull this down slightly, because I'm going to duplicate one and leave it here. This will be our specular. Okay. And then we'll grab one more, drag it to here. This will be our normal map, and we can drag in our normal map from here to our dirt layer. And finally one more for our ambient occlusion, and drag our dirt layer into ambient occlusion. Okay, so this is our dirt setup. We can drag this out, just comment around it, dirt. Okay, so now we want to do the same thing for our other three textures. So if we just drag this up, we'll move it up here out of the way, and come down here and duplicate. Sorry, that's me just duplicated the comment. Let's highlight the full thing. Come down here and duplicate everything. So now we want to set up our second channel, which is our mud. So let's first of all change the name here to mud, and this will be our mud albedo. So mud albedo, and just change all the comments just so it makes it a little bit easier for us to read. So mud normal and dirt AO, so mud AO. Okay, so now heading back up to the top, we then need to set up everything for the mud. So if we click on the dirt albedo, we can change this to mud albedo. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just copy mud and let's just paste it into the group. So now we have mud albedo in our mud group, and if I click here, we want mud cavity, so cavity, and just change this into our mud group, and we want our cavity intensity to be changed, so this will be mud cavity intensity. Okay, now we have our roughness, so let's change this to mud roughness, and change the group to mud. Let's just make sure we change this group, we didn't, so dirt, mud. Okay, make sure all our groups are changed. I'll show you why we make sure the groups are changed in a second. So let's make sure this is changed to mud roughness min and mud roughness max, and change the group to mud and dirt. Let's change this to mud and mud. So the intensity now, okay, and let's just say mud AO and change this to mud. Okay, so we've missed one, so the intensity, we need to change this, so this is the AO intensity. So mud AO intensity, change the group to mud. Okay, so now that we have all these changed and they're all inside our new groups, okay, just make sure they're all inside the group, yep. Okay, so we can now start dragging these into the mud layers. So first of all the albedo, and then our roughness, sorry that's the wrong one, oh, that was the right one, sorry. So roughness into roughness, roughness into roughness, and the mud AO. Okay, so the thing that got me confused here is well, we didn't have our specular layer set up, so let's quickly go over the specular layer. So we just want constants, drag in the first one and convert it to a parameter, and this is just going to be our dirt specular. Now doing it this way will allow us to create a specular for each one of our maps, for each one of our textures. So let's change this to dirt. Okay, and we want the minimum value to be the same as what it is inside the layer just now, so 0.5, this is the default value. Let's duplicate this, and we want another one for our mud layer. Okay, and just change the name to mud specular, and we want to change the group to mud. Oh, sorry. Wow. Select all. Delete. So mud. And now we want one for our grass, so let's just drag this into the grass layer. We'll change this to grass specular, and we want to change the group to grass. Okay, so now that we have those set up, let's just compile and save just now. We'll let it quickly compile the textures, and while it's doing that, we will jump into the material instance just to show you what we have done so far. So inside our material instance, as you can see now, we have our dirt group, our grass group, and our mud group. And inside these we can have our dirt, AO intensity, and all of the settings that we've already set up so far. And we can adjust these in real time inside the editor, which is really, really powerful. We can also, if we have more than one landscape inside our world, we can just duplicate the material instance and swap out the textures if we want to have different textures on a different landscape. Say you have a snowy area in your map, you can drag in snow textures and still use the same parameters. So let's continue and start setting up our grass materials. So let's grab all of this again and just duplicate it down. Now we're going to be doing the exact same thing as before. Let's just drag the constant with it. So the same thing as before, we just need to rename everything to our grass. Okay, that's dragged more than that. So we just need to rename everything to our grass. So, okay, third time lucky. Let's grab all of this, drag down and duplicate. There we have it. So, let's change this to grass, and grass. Again, jump down to our comments, just change them all to grass. Okay, so now we need to start renaming everything again. So grab our albedo, I'll just say grass, and I'll select all, copy, and say albedo. Okay, and change the group to grass. Now the mud cavity, you want to be grass cavity, and change the group to grass. Okay, so now our intensity, so the cavity intensity will be grass cavity intensity. We'll get rid of the _1 and change the group to grass. Okay, roughness, again change it to grass roughness and grass. The reason why we have to rename everything is if it's still got the same name as something else, when you change the value of it, it changes both at the same time, and we don't want that. We want to be able to change just one thing and have it affect that one parameter. So let's change this and grass and grass. Okay. So trying to go as fast as possible here because we are starting to eat into a lot of time. I actually think I missed that. Yeah, I did. grass, grass, and finally our AO. Okay, so now we have our grass AO intensity, our grass AO, grass, grass. That one's set to mud, so let's change that to grass. And what would happen if this was in a different group, or if we didn't have a group, is it wouldn't appear in the group inside the material instance, therefore it would be harder for us to find. So having it set up this way makes it much easier to find things when we want to change it inside real time. So let's drag this up to the base color. Let's drag our roughness up to the roughness, this one here, and the normal up to the normal, and the grass AO up to grass AO. Okay, so now that we have that set up, we need to set up the tiling for it, because right now it's just going by the UV tiles that come in as standard. So what we want to do first of all is get our world position. So this will be our absolute world position, and from the world position we want to multiply, because we want to be able to multiply the world position by something, which will be our main tiling. So let's just grab a constant and drag that into B, and if we change this to say 0.002, something really small, and right click convert to parameter, and this will be our tiling, and it will be under the group main, because this is the main tiling for our landscape. Okay, now when we grab this spits out a vector3 parameter, but for texture 2Ds we only need two channels, because you have your U and your V. So what we need to do is take this vector3 and just add a mask, so a component mask, and this spits out the R and G channels. Okay, so from the R and G channels we then want to multiply, and now we want to set up tiling for each one of our textures, but we want them to be separate so that we can say tile our dirt with one tiling, tile our mud with another tiling, and tile our grass with another tiling. We don't want them to be generated by the exact same tile, just in case we want one to be bigger than the other. So for this one we'll just drag into our dirt, okay, and dirt, dirt, and dirt, okay. And now from here we want to bring in another constant, so just 1 and click drags a constant in, and if we right click convert to parameter, we can then call this our dirt tiling, okay, and we will set this in the dirt group. Now we need one for each of them, so let's just grab the multiply, grab the dirt tiling and duplicate, drag it to there, and do the same again, drag it to here. So if we drag off the mask into the A and into the A, we can then grab this dirt tiling, and we'll change this to mud tiling, and change the group to mud, and then this one to grass tiling, and change the group to grass. Okay, and we'll just set the default values just now to 1, so that it tiles based on the world tile. So it'll be this times 1. So if we want to tile them all at the same time, we can adjust this tiling, but if we want to tile them separately, we can adjust these tiling. Okay, I hope you get that. It's a bit confusing, so let's drag from our mud into our UVs. And here, and finally the AO. So that's our mud tiling, and now our grass tiling. And I think that's one more. So grass ambient occlusion, and drag that in. Now we haven't set up any of our diffuse or any of our maps yet. As you can see, they're all still set to dirt. That's okay, we can keep them the way they are just now, and I'll show you why in just a second. So if we drag this out, just drag it out to about here, put a comment around this, and we'll just call it tiling. Okay, and if we save this out, okay, and now we can enter our lobby map. Yeah, we don't see anything on it just now because we haven't painted anything on, and we don't have any weight blend information. So just make sure that's set up there, and open up our lobby map. And what we can do here is, let's just drag this over to here and open this up a little bit more. If we go to our textures, okay, and drag down, I'll just minimize this just now, so we have our grass textures. Just drag this out a little bit better so you can see. So here are all our grass textures and grass parameters. Okay, and we'll deal with that in a second. So for the grass textures, I can't actually see mine, but here's our grass textures, and we just want to drag them in. Okay, now I'm going to drag mine on the other screen because it's a little bit easier for me. But you're just dragging them in, so the albedo to the albedo, the cavity to the cavity, the ambient occlusion to the ambient occlusion, the normal maps to the normal maps, and the roughness maps to the roughness maps, and then do the same for the mud layers. And this just assigns the textures to them. So the mud albedo, mud AO, mud cavity, mud normal, and mud roughness. Okay, so let's just set that up. Let's just save it. And if we jump into our landscape, so just make sure you have your landscape selected, and go to the landscape tab, go to paint, and sometimes it takes a minute to refresh everything. Let's just make sure this is saved. This too is saved. Your layered blends are set up. Okay, these aren't showing up yet. Let's just try and save entire level. Okay, I'm going to try and reload my lobby landscape into the landscape itself. It's sometimes a little bit buggy, and now we have them. So if that happens, just drag the material instance into our lobby landscape again, and this will now give you your material layers. So we want to weight blend the layer, so just click the plus, weight blend the layer, and this will give us the information. And inside materials, we set up the weight blends the last time. So let's just drop it into our weight blends layer, into our weight blends folder, sorry. And when it's done, we now have our blend layer. And do the same again. So materials, weight blends. This will give us our mud. Okay, and now weight blend, materials, and we'll get our grass. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is just zoom right out. Again, same as the last time. I'm going to grab the dirt layer, so this is our bottom layer, and I'll just increase the brush size to say 10,000 or something really high. Still not high enough, but let's try 100,000. That will do nicely. And just set this to 1 and paint the entire terrain with the dirt. Okay. Now let's just drop this down, and I'm going to click off here and pick my player start and hit F to zoom into him. And if we hit play just now, we can see how the dirt looks just now. You can see this white sheet over the top. That's the specular that's set to 0.5. And we can control that by going into our material instance. So if I just zoom in here and pull this down a little, we can see how it looks just now. So if we open up our material instance, we can now start to adjust the dirt layer. So let's close these down and go to our dirt. Now the dirt layer, I don't need to adjust the tiling because it seems okay the way it is, but I will adjust it to show you what it does. So as you can see, it changes the tiling of the layer. Okay, now I'm just going to set this back to 1. Scroll back up here. Okay, now our ambient occlusion intensity, we can increase that slightly. The cavity intensity, if you drop it down low and let go, you can see it starts to change the cavity, and if you increase it, it changes it more. I like to set this about 0.49. The normal intensity now, this is us increasing the red and green channels from the dirt normal, and if we increase this, you can see it starting to really pop. Too much of this though, and you end up with something that looks really unrealistic. So keep it simple, maybe 0.9, maybe a little lower, 0.8, that looks okay. Okay, maybe even lower than that as well. Yeah, 0.6 seems okay. .65, let's try that. That looks nice. Okay, now what I was saying about the roughness max and roughness min. So if we drag up our roughness min, it takes the low values and makes them white essentially. So if there was any kind of wetness here at all within the texture, it would make them it would make them more dry looking. So we can set this back to 0, And if we lower the roughness max, it now makes the texture wet looking. And we can adjust the min. Okay, so now it's a wet texture. Now let's just take this back up to say 0.8 or 0.9 and make sure it's completely dry, so we'll take the minimum up to 0.3. Now the specular, like I was saying earlier, we had this kind of white sheet over the texture. If we lower the specular, you can now see we get rid of that white sheet, and if we bring it back up, the white sheet comes back. So let's keep this about 1.5, just so we have some light bounce but not too much. Okay, so that is our dirt set up. We can now grab our grass and start painting it in, and our mud. Okay, so let's just paint something in. Let's drag this back out again. Paint. Scroll down. We'll grab our mud. And I think I want my mud to be around about the water area, so the mud will be underwater. So something like this. Okay. So now when we play, we can run down to our mud. We see it's very flat and very plain, and we still have this specular sheet over the top of the mud. See it? So let's adjust that. Let's grab our we can close this down just now. We need our material instance. Okay. Now jump down to our grass. We can change the AO intensity. And what we'll do just now is zoom in and just position this a little bit better. Okay, so now when we start working on this, we can increase the AO intensity. It does something, just not a lot with the ambient occlusion, unfortunately. If we now bring up, oh sorry, this is our grass, so let's go to the mud, this bit here. So it does do something, just not a great deal. You can see it changing. So let's just bring this up a little bit. And the mud, let's say 1.2 for the cavity intensity. Oh no, so that's the cavity intensity, let's say 155. 0.6, 0.65. Yeah, 0.65 looks good to me. If we scroll down, we've got the normal intensity. Let's try 1.2, and you can see it right away starting to pop. Okay, so let's drag this down just a bit more. Yeah, about 0.8 looks nice to me. Okay, now because this is underwater, this area, I think I'm going to go and have this be wet. So let's drop this down to about, it's a bit too much wet. About 0.5 looks nice. And bring this up so that the really wet bits aren't too wet. And just adjust these values until you see something that looks nice. And then let's drop the specular to about here. Yeah, that looks nice. So let's just drag this off to the other screen just now. If we press play, we can then run over to the mud area now. It looks much better. Okay. So now let's paint in some grass. grab our texture, paint, and grab our grass layer. Just start painting in some grass. Okay, that should do it just now. Let's zoom into the player. This way we can see what our grass looks like. Okay, and you can see that specular sheet again. So let's bring back our material instance. Okay, and we'll go to our grass. Let's start working on this now. So let's bring up the AO intensity a little bit, and the cavity, let's just drop that a bit, not too much. Yeah, about there should do. And then bring up our normals, so I'm going to say about 0.8. Okay, that's maybe a little too much. Yeah, that's too much, so 0.6. Go 0.65 with this, I think. Yeah. And now we want to just drop our roughness slightly, not too much. We'll say 0.91 and bring up the roughness at the low end. And we still have this specular sheet, so let's drop this right down to almost nothing. That looks a lot better. And now when we press play, we have this nice grass going into a nice dirt and then into mud. Now before we finish up this video, let me just show you. You can see right away the you can see the lines where we stop. They're very apparent. So to combat that, you can blend the materials by, if you jump into our grass layer just now, and if we drop the brush size to say 30, that's too much, we'll say 80, that's fine. Okay, and if you hold shift, you can delete. Okay, so let's just delete some of it. Again, delete some of the grass. And if you set the brush size, the brush strength, sorry, to 0.3, and then go back in and start painting, you can paint but blend through the layer, rather than it going straight into mud. Okay, it just makes it look a little bit more natural. And then we go to where we painted there, you can see it fades in. It looks a lot better. So this brings us to the end of the video. With this material, obviously you're going to want to put as many of these maps in as you possibly can. You want to have a dirt, a mud, a grass, something else, something else, something else. But just remember, this isn't a perfect system. Do not use like 10 layers. It will not compile. It will crash. Use this as a base and start building assets around about it. So put a path in, put a dirt track in, and use these landscape layers to blend through, rather than using this to actually paint in paths and stuff. It doesn't. It's not to be used like that. Okay. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop onto our Discord channel. The next video, I think I will cover tessellation. It's good to know tessellation, but it will be very costly on your map. So it's maybe a good idea to have a landscape for your ultra settings, your epic settings, and a landscape for your low and medium settings. So one with tessellation, one without tessellation. So we'll cover that in the next video. Thanks very much for joining us, and I'll see you in the next one.